Sup Dork Lords. So there's this game that just came out that you might not have heard of called Elden Ring, and I gotta say it's pretty good. This is From Software's attempt at an open world Dark Souls game. This game is fundamentally Dark Souls 4, which is a good thing. The developers stayed true to their game design and didn't drastically change anything or cater to a fanbase other than theirs. I'm also making this review after doing all the endings, including the optional ones, and having all achievements, so I have a decent idea on what Elden Ring has to offer. If you like the Souls series, you will like this one, as it is a Souls game through and through, just in a slightly different format for better or worse. If you like these types of games, I highly recommend you pick up Elden Ring. However, if you have not played a previous title, I recommend you pick up an older one to see if this is your game type. I specifically would recommend one of these two if you're looking to dip your toes into something new. Also, this is what I mean when I say Souls series. Lastly, my experience and playthroughs were all on PC, so I will be accounting for performance and other issues exclusive to the PC in this review. Elden Ring has a lot of good qualities, and it's amazing how good this game is considering the fact that this is From Software's first attempt at an open-world Dark Souls game, which is even more impressive based on the fact that they had no trial and error runs or information they could gather based on other company attempts. This game certainly isn't perfect, however, for a first attempt, this is pretty much as good as it could have gone. The best quality about Elden Ring is easily the open world itself. Each area feels unique and free to explore, and the mystery of the game and unraveling the world's secrets is very fun and gratifying to figure out. Simply put, the world is beautiful. Each major region feels and looks unique and is exciting to travel across and fill out the map. Since you have access to a mount and fast travel very early on, it doesn't feel tedious to trek across. The world is also massive, breathtakingly so. The size of the game exceeded my expectations 10 times over. I thought I had reached the end of the game 3 or so times just to be surprised with a whole new area to explore instead. While exploring the open world is great, it does help to have a little guidance or path to follow, and the NPC questlines do that perfectly. Elden Ring has my favorite NPC questlines out of any of the Souls games, and this has a lot of quests you can do. There are two types of NPC quests: main quests that can get you achievements and major endings, and side NPC quests that are usually smaller scale, but can provide optional alternative endings to the game as well. Both types of quests can either be short, fun, and relatively small scale, while other quests span the entirety of the game, giving a good mix of complexity and simplicity. Lastly, Elden Ring has the best first experience playthrough out of any Souls games, bar none. It's honestly not even close how much better this first playthrough is compared to the other games. Now, I know the good portion of this review was rather short, and that's because the good things are obvious, and will be to everyone who plays the game. I like to focus on the things that could be better in hopes that maybe they'll change to make this experience even grander. To move on to the mixed portion of the game, I have to explain what I mean by that. These are potentially exclusive experiences relative to my playthroughs and my playthroughs alone that can't be defined as good or bad for the game at this moment, so they don't really reflect the experience as a whole. So the game is open world, and even though I praised it earlier, it does have flaws. Since it is so open and free to roam, the progression of the game feels wonky. In my playthroughs, I would often find myself fighting enemies way lower than my current gear and level, then 20 minutes later I would fight something way stronger than before, which makes the game feel a little inconsistent at times, but you could possibly avoid this feeling entirely if you just took a different route than I did, which I guarantee no two players are going to experience the same progression of areas. The progression, however, is not only limited to enemies, but loot as well. Sometimes I find myself needing a Smithing Stone 4 to upgrade my weapon, and I look at my inventory and I have no Smithing Stone 4, but a Smithing Stone 6 or 7, which are useless at the moment. Like I said, this could be exclusive to my experience, but to top this point off, this game can also be broken very quickly because it's so open. You can spend an hour at the start of the game and roam the world picking up all golden seeds and sacred tears that you can, since almost every area is open at the start, and basically dwindle the difficulty and challenge of the beginning area. You can also have access to a zero-threat, easy-to-kill enemy that gives 50,000 runes, and a very good rune farm, which you can reach without killing a single enemy. Both are in the same region. While I think this game is very good and unique amongst other modern games, there are a lot of flaws and things I wish were different. Maybe it's because a major portion of the development time was during a global pandemic, maybe it was because of budget cuts, whatever. This game feels like it should have come out 2 years later. I never thought I would say this while critiquing a Souls game, but I think Elden Ring's worst quality is the boss fights. Boss patterns are designed specifically and with clear intent to throw you off as much as possible. Now that's not a bad thing inherently, if used in moderation. Unfortunately, every boss is like this. And that's not the worst of it. The core design and vision of the boss fight is what's really bad. Bosses feel like they aren't there to kill you or to provide a substantial challenge, they are there to waste your time. A lot of bosses have very long strains and super fast movement options, which make you do laps around the arena to catch up with them, hoping they hit them once or twice before they do it again. Bosses run away so much in this game, and it feels like for no reason except the pad for time. Also, the amount of reskin boss fights is insane. Like, look at the difference when comparing the mainline boss fights from the previous games to this one. My next point, I'll call the rule of 2, which just like the previous point, every boss follows this rule. The rule of 2 means every boss kills you in 1 or 2 hits, and you can only punish their recovery with 1 or 2 attacks. 2 if you're lucky. Now, I don't mind getting killed in 1 or 2 hits all the time. It puts pressure on me to not make mistakes. However, the mid to late game bosses have a lot of mechanics and cheese to pair with it, which can provide a very tedious experience. It also can get boring having to heal after every single time I'm hit. And no matter how strong of an attack or long of an attack string, bosses always recover at the same speed, which makes the whole game have a very basic flow of combat that gets repetitive very quickly, and it's consistent through the whole game. Boss fights pretty much look like this. Roll, light attack, roll. Your only real option is to switch out light attack with a jumping heavy attack, then run away instead of rolling, and then rinse repeat. Both these methods have very little to no variation to them, and both are boring in the long run. Elden Ring is also incredibly easy in comparison to other Souls games, and just any game in general. The hard part about Elden Ring is changing your playstyle to play how it feels the game wants you to, which means using summons and spamming weapon skills. The game and enemy design feels catered and balanced for these mechanics, which creates very one-sided fights in your favor, minimal danger throughout the game, and a massive power creep near the late game for both you and a set few bosses. I struggled maybe with 1 boss, and I haven't even died to the majority of them. You know what killed me the most in this game? Fall damage. Elden Ring has a problem with fake difficulty as well, at least the feeling of it. This game is very front-loaded, which means everything you experience in Limgrave for the most part you will experience throughout the rest of your playthrough. That means dungeons, ruins, world bosses, enemy types, main story boss fights, you name it. Which leads to a major lack of enemy diversity past the first area, which contributes to the feeling of fake difficulty, because both these enemies here are the same difficulty. One is just more tedious and takes longer to fight, but it doesn't actually provide more of a challenge and isn't more fun to overcome. Another contributing factor for the feeling of fake difficulty are the gank boss fights. Ornstein and Smough is my favorite boss fight without question. Out of all the games, I like it the best. For the most part, however, these gank boss fights suck in Elden Ring, because 99% of them you have to fight the same enemy twice, and sometimes they'll have a different weapon. So regardless, they feel the same to fight, they act the same way, which obviously would get boring fast, especially because usually they move at the same exact speed and it feels very awkward to break them up. Ornstein and Smough work because both bosses can be fun on their own and they feel unique from each other. As a final note, Souls games are also very renowned for their near infinite replayability on a widespread scale across all their games. I still play Dark Souls 1, 2, 3, Bloodborne to this day. Elden Ring seems to have the least replayability because it lacks a few things the other games don't. The biggest contributor to this factor are the boss fights. To complete this game, I believe you only have to beat 10 or so bosses, which can be done in less than 10 to 15 hours on your first playthrough if you don't really care for exploring. Now alone, that's not a roadblock for replayability, however, since a lot of boss fights can feel tedious or lose their luster after the first clear, or because on one playthrough you've already killed a certain boss 2 or 4 times, you can lose the motivation faster on multiple runs. I certainly did. Pair this with the fact that the world does not get updated like in Dark Souls 2, there's no more reason to explore since you have all the unique items in the game from one clear already. Even though I just shit on this game basically, I still think it's good and a worthwhile experience. However, Elden Ring feels like the swan song of From Software. They've gone open world with nowhere else to go. A good experience that feels rather inconsistent at times, 7 out of 10, still playing it, and plan to continue to. Last but not least, a huge thank you to my Patreon supporters. I would not be able to make these videos without you. A huge thank you to Always Dilphin, Anime Lover 298, Quidlad, Dragon D's, Convicted Felon, Kato69, Sun Goku, Swag Bunky, Bullet Ass, and Silly String Man 17. Thank you so much.